Ta-da! Ta-da! I'm streaming. It is 9:37 a.m. And why am I streaming? Because it's time to get some work done and I don't really feel like uploading videos later. Well, this is kind of an interesting place that we're in. I've been talking a bit about, in regard to anime, this idea of building out and from a workflow standpoint, this project is at the place where basically it's time to go ahead and work out the exact timing of each of these keyframes and get it, close to the point where it's ready for the final render. However, when I looked at the beats of the scene, kind of interesting that what I've discovered, I kind of knew this, but what I discovered is that I'm actually only about halfway through this scene. If that. There's quite a bit of battle still to go on. So essentially we have the introduction, the introductory minute of the show, which is already done and rendered and edited. And then we've got a little bit of transition, but then we get into this scene, and basically the first half of it has some dialogue. This actual sequence is really pretty long here in OpenTunes, but basically, if we think of it as this first section is all talk, okay, with Mr. Big and blah blah blah, and then the battle kind of begins. Well, so basically you're in the range of 100 frames to get to the battle, and then you're around 100 frames of battle so far. Well, after he slices her dress, it turns out there's actually Ninja One's laying on the floor because he just swung his sword and basically slipped and fell when he took her dress out, or took her strap out, I should say. He didn't really take her dress out. And then she's chewing him out. And so I guess I won't waste my YouTube audience's time going through all the beats, but the upshot of it is that there's a fair amount that still has to happen. I would say certainly 100 more shots. Okay, if we call each one of these keyframes, shot's not the right word. I mean, this is a shot going, when the camera is in one place, whatever the keyframes are, that's a shot. So this is a fairly long shot. This is, so here's Ninja number 2 deciding to get ready to take some action. Well, that would be a shot because it's one camera angle. If you can think of the virtual camera, if you were shooting a movie, that would be one shot. But some of the shots consist of keyframes, of several keyframes, and some of them don't. Basically, if there's a lot of dialogue, they tend not to have too many keyframes. So what you find is that each individual cell, if you will, in your timeline, it does seem to come out to around 4 frames. Is that right? I'm sorry, not 4 frames, 4 seconds on average. 3 to 4 seconds. So some of them, like these keys, obviously go by really fast, but then these dialogue keys way up here go by very slowly. So on average, it comes out to around 3 to 4 seconds per shot. And when you do the math, it turns out that this whole scene so far is going to come out to somewhere around 3.5 to 4 minutes. Well, guess what? There's another 3.5 to 4 minutes left. you know, this scene is in ways that I can't necessarily say, sort of setting up the whole show. So so that brings us up to date, and where we are at is we've got the place where we've got to the point here where there's going to be some dialogue between these two. And what I was going to do was have him say something to her that makes her aghast, and then boom, she punches him. Well, I got outvoted. Doesn't happen too often, but I love the punch. The punch has to go. But it was a trade-off, because this bit where I'm sorry, I'm down too far south here. I believe it's here. Where the heck is it? Oh yeah, right here. So this bit where she biffs this guy in the nugs, that whole bit was kind of that was my idea. It was kind of an addition to the scene, because it just felt like the right thing to do. And so I get to trade my kicking the jewels for the for the punch in the face. So this direct punch in the face I don't get to do. And I don't know if you guys can really see how that goes, but my thought was, she's chewing him out for it's I have to say this kind of on the nose. It amounts to the idea that you know, don't you have any honor? You know, you trying to remove my clothes, or you know, something of that nature. And then he's like, well, I something along the lines of, I can't speak an untruth. You're not altogether unattractive. And of course that makes her go, ah, bow. Well, like I said, that got upvoted. So anyway, yesterday, posted a couple videos and was doing some work with Krita. So I thought I'll shock the entire universe today and use Blender to create the keys going forward. Because here's the thing. And by the way, I probably should save this, or I'm going to get myself in a pickle. When, you know, the old story is save early, save often. Where the heck did my save dialogue go? Hello? Maybe I need to get Blender's attention. Okay, yeah, that's kind of weird. I'm hitting the Control S, and for the first time ever, which always happens whenever I'm live streaming. Whenever I invite other people into my world, things start breaking. I've seen it happen a million times. I'll be working in the recording studio for a week, and I've got, you know, multiple plugins going. I got complex music with 50 different parts, and everything works perfectly smoothly. And then Natalie will come in to sing something, and all of a sudden things quit working. It's never seen it fail. Okay, that worked. Something about the hotkey. What happened to Control S? Okay, so I guess we'll just go here and we'll call this fight back half, and let's smack a date on it as well. 02/08/2019. Okay. So anyway, I figured, you know what? As long as I'm deviating from OpenTunes, why not? Hey, Oxter, how's it going, man? Why not just go ahead and go all the way? And so today I'm doing my keys in Blender, because it's all just pencil test anyway, and ultimately it's going to get inked. You know, who knows? Maybe I'll get ambitious and try to ink it in Blender too, just to really shake things up. You know, as long as I can maintain a similar aesthetic to what I've been getting out of OpenTunes, then that would probably be fine. So the concept here is to do what I've been doing in OpenTunes, which is just go from one frame to the next and tell the story. So it invites the question, well, what's the advantage of Blender versus OpenTunes or whatever? And each of the apps I use have a different set of features and benefits and detriments. One of Blender's benefits is a infinite canvas. Oops, I'm used to hitting the B key instead of the D key. I probably should just change my Blender shortcuts so that things kind of sort of work the same from one app to another. So I probably don't need the onion skins on. Oops. My bad. I actually rarely use onion skins. I find it's much easier to just toggle between shots like that. In this case, because I'm not really doing in-betweening, onion skins are kind of pointless because all I'm seeing is a completely different shot, obviously. So I'm gonna okay, so the way the stories change, instead of this punch thing, I got to give Ninja number 1 a couple lines of dialogue here, and then we're gonna get a little bit of a gag out of Ninja 2 crawling back in the window. So which obviously is ridiculous, since, as you may or may not know, we established early in the show that these guys climbed a wall at least 40 or 50 feet off the ground, and probably a lot more, in order to get into. This is another thing with Blender it's actually probably the most important reason why I'm cool with using it for pencil tests, is that and let's go only render, is that everything's made of rubber in Blender. Everything is deformable, which is pretty cool. So anyway, now you can get the same result with the S key. Select and then mush things around in Krita, or I'm sorry, in OpenTunes. Well, Krita, same thing actually. I've got Krita set up to use the S key as well, and then I've set the A key to the transform tool because that's most similar to using the animate tool in OpenTunes. So we're giving this guy a couple lines of dialogue. Should we cut back to Akari? Let's see. Let's just. Okay, that didn't work at all, did it? Well, let's make this eraser bigger, and we're getting too comic booky here. Well, that's where jumping back and forth is definitely helpful. Got to get the positioning of this guy's eyes better, and they need to be sufficiently cartoony. I sort of got away from myself since I was blabbing. So yeah, this is just a jump cut, obviously. Definitely a lot more accurate. Transition there. So, well, I see another thing with Blender is what I could have done. Why redraw it? If you're going to do the jump cut, I could have just taken these grease pencil strokes and scaled them. So that's that. Okay. Now, do I really want... Actually, I don't like this position either. Either, neither, neither. going to imply that he's actually starting to get up, which is a little dangerous because it means that I really need to show that motion of him sort of rising, which means a bunch more keyframes. So the truth is, if I was smart, yep, I'm going to be smart. I'm going to go like this. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to grab this and X. I'm going to delete that keyframe. If I want to do the jump cut, what I'll do is just go like this, size this guy up here, which automatically created a keyframe for me, and now I'll just hit the G key. Yeah, because it's stupid to put myself in a situation where I'm going to have to create a bunch of keyframes to show a transitional movement. That's just not good anime practice, is it? Okay, so I'm going to say if Akari's responding to him, there's going to be a little bit of, obviously she's going to be up high. So we'll indicate the back of her skull here. So, and I think that actually this might be a way that I can get some of my joke in there surreptitiously, which is if I have her. Oh yeah, this is good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw her from an angle where her endowments are really, really, really obvious. Okay. Now there is a bit of a problem with that I need to address here in just a second, but yes, I like that. Okay. So remember, if we go back to OpenTunes, she's holding her dress on there with her right arm, and so I have to kind of zoom out and see what that would look like. I guess we'll go like this. Okay, so that's her right arm from his perspective. Yeah, I like that. Because what I'm trying to do is the idea is that he's saying some things that allude to her feminine endowments in the wake of what she just said to him, which is, what do you think you're doing? You're not fighting in an honorable way, or something of that nature, right? So we'll drive the point home by showing what he sees, and from his perspective, this is what he sees. Men and women. Alright, let's do a little erasing here. And now I'm just simplifying the shapes a bit to adhere to our character designs. And I remember the little winky dinky on her hair goes to her right, audience's left. Okay, something doesn't seem right here. Yeah, so actually if her skull went like this, then we actually would see a bit of this hair action going on. Like so. And her little pigtail thing would fall over her hand. So Alright, let's go back to... and I think that her other hand should be... Let's just kind of imply that the other arm would be like this. So she's sort of holding herself to... Oh wait, that's not right. She's got to have her other hand behind her. Because remember, she's holding her... yeah. She's actually got this hand back behind. So, boom, boom, boom. There's the strap. And I gotta be careful on my anatomy here. And frankly, this might be a little too high. Okay, so she'd be holding that like that, and this arm would be kind of... She's got this arm wrapped around her. Yeah. Well, let's see. Once her dress rips, she's holding it in front and back. Okay, actually she lets go. Biffs him. So, yeah, I guess I was correct the first time. What actually makes the most sense here would be this shoulder being like this, and the implication being that she's just kind of keeping herself together. So that's cool. Okay. And she's definitely chewing him out, so I just want to make sure I make note of that. So now in Blender, what I'm actually doing now is I'm hitting the 1 key to go to the front view, and then I can hit the 9 key so it flips it. That way I can just check my work. Obviously her boobs are being slightly exaggerated here for effect, because the whole point is to... I mean, that's kind of what the focus of the conversation is on, in a way. Alright, boom, boom, boom. Okay. So, now the obvious question, I don't even know if I should go down this road. Probably if I wasn't live streaming I wouldn't, but the obvious question becomes, well, what about ink and paint? Would it be possible to go ahead and keep going with Blender? Well, of course it's possible. Whether it's well advised is a whole nother question. Well, what would you do? What would you do if you were going to? Well, here's one place where Blender would be handy, because if you ink and paint at once, you could go ahead and delete that key and just size it up and you're back in business. But basically, here's how I would do it. I would lock the sketch layer and turn its opacity down to something like that. Okay, and then I would go to this ink layer, and probably what I would do is I would turn it on to super smooth ink and switch to my ink color, and I guess I have to admit I would try to sort of think from front to back, or I'm sorry, the opposite, from back to front. Only because by thinking from back to front, I could actually build this up with shapes, as opposed to building it up with lines and fills. So let's play. Let's see if that's even going to be possible. Well, if I use the super smooth ink and I'm going to go back to front, then I would go something like this. Okay, so I would just get that blocked in, and then this is going to be a black ink fill. And by the way, technically what I really should do here to keep it consistent with what I've done in the past is I should actually make the stroke. That doesn't really work. Let's see, I need to make 2 versions of this. So let's go ahead and add another color, and then what I'm going to do is make this kind of a charcoal but black fill. So it just depends on if I want the outlines or not. If I'm just going to use it as a fill, I'll use this, and if I want outlines, I'll use that. So, having said that, that means I would go, and the reason I've got my sketch layer on top is, I mean here, the sketch layer is, it's actually on the bottom of the list, but that means it gets rendered last. That means that no matter what I draw with my color, I can still see the sketch on top of it, as you can see. Alright, and in fact, it might not be a bad idea to crank it up a bit. Maybe even go to a little bit. Yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea. Using red has been kind of useful. Okay, so let's go here, and this has got to be, I really should probably get a reference image from what I've done before in OpenTunes, but truthfully, I could do that at any time, and just by using the sampler, sample the colors and change these colors I'm working with, so what's it matter? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to maintain the charcoal outline. So again, working from back to front, it would look something like this. Okay, and then yeah, now I'm getting in trouble because my whole back to front thing just fell apart because I shouldn't have really started with his, well, I could have started with his arm, but what about his head? Obviously his head is behind, so D. Okay. So what I would do here is, let's see, that the sketch is locked, so I should be able to do it like this. This is a little obnoxious, but it's kind of what you would have to do. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this. Okay, and then what I would do is a couple things I could do. One is grab this stroke, and then I believe I have my shortcut keys set up so that I can just hit page down, and that takes it behind. So then when I let go, you can see if I turn off the sketch, that pretty well looks the way you would expect it to. So it's a little clunky, but you can do it that way. So here you would do the same thing. Boom, boom, and actually just do it like that. And by just moving it backwards, gets it out of the way. And then here again, you could put the strap, and yeah, so that's a little bit of a clunky way to do it, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Okay. Whoa, bunch of notes. Can't wait for the weekend. Cool. Sounds like you got some cool stuff going on, Oxer. As for me, I actually hit 1,000 subscribers yesterday in the wake of my video on drawing Naruto in Krita. Okay. So that actually works pretty well. Let's just follow this through. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the back to front thing here on his on this guy going forward here. So frankly, you don't really see the little, I don't know what you call it, a barrette, I suppose. So let's, because I have my super smooth ink pen, I can have a little bit of a wiggly line, and it's going to smooth out really well. So then we've got our headband, and Of course, actually, I guess we do need to use that. So here I have the same situation I had before, where I have to take that and just hit page down a couple things to get that behind. Alright, so again, working back to front, I guess his other ear would be in order. Okay, and then his eyes. Got the wrong color there, folks. Okay, and I'm going to actually tweak that thusly. Grab this. And by the way, I see a little bit of an issue there. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and draw that through like that. And then obviously that's got to be bumped down. Come on. Up. That doesn't work. Page up. So actually, as obnoxious as it is, I have to actually hit page up with that. See, this is the kind of thing you can run into. Yeah. So I'm jumping through. Okay, so the other thing I could do, actually, the fastest solution here is just go like this. Okay, let's try that one more time, folks. Okay, and you can always use, you know, like the solid black as a sort of a patch. Okay, now, little skin patch, real quick. Boom. Congrats on the 1,000. Thanks, man. I missed the first part of the stream. Why are we back in Blender? A fair question. Because I'm just being screwy. I figured I did the thing yesterday in Krita. Why not throw caution to the wind? And basically, the short story is this sequence is, as near as I can tell, 3.5 to 4 minutes long. Well, guess what? If you look at the story beats, there's another 3.5 to 4 minutes left. And so I don't want to do the timing on these shots. I've got them colored. So basically, these are near final state. They actually are basically at the final state if you were to turn the tint on. So there it is. That's basically what we have. So after spending a couple days doing backgrounds and getting it all dialed in, I have to go back to storyboarding. You know, it's time to do more animatics. Probably another 200 drawings. So with that in mind, I thought, well, what the heck? Why not go back in Blender and do it there just for fun? Okay, so now if I was actually going to do inking and paint in Blender, what I would do is first I would turn this off at a certain point. I would also go back to my main brush, which is my sketch brush, and once I had the basic shapes in there, I would go in, and that doesn't look like that's completely black, is it? Then I would go in with a regular pencil-y type of brush and tune things up, like so. Which is not a bad way to work, frankly. You know. And I can get that sketchy quality that I like. So sketch where appropriate and be strict with your ink where appropriate. Just depends. So, you know, do we have essentially finished art here? Yeah, kind of, sort of, maybe. Let's go to the shadow. As long as we're here and having all kinds of fun. Actually, that's wrong, by the way. Based on where he fell down, what would actually be happening is something more like this. Oh, that's not right either. I could just edit the shape, obviously, but... Okay, one nice thing about using a semi-opaque color in Blender, and by the way, I'm just going to fix that, like, well, not quite like that, like that. I'm just going to do that. So one good thing about doing shadows this way is that they do double up on each other. So if I want to still get some shadowing under his eyes, I can do so, like so. And I like the way you can go, like, just draw a curve and then of course it connects them. So for a lot of different kinds of shadows that you might need, that actually provides a good mechanism for getting her done. Okay, so now here we would have something like that. Here we would have something like that. Here we would have something like that. Maybe even a little more. Okay. So, the question you might ask is, well, geez, Dave, that looks okay. Why the heck not just do it in Blender? And the truth is that knowing what I know now, in terms of my technique and my workflow, I probably could do it in Blender. Now, in a way that I really couldn't before. I don't think I'd want to comp it to the backgrounds in Blender, but this sort of thing, what you're seeing right here, is definitely kind of useful. And be able to use the sculpting tools to really dial it in. Right here you can see the same problem. So, you know, you can add a little production value. Okay, we got the smooth tool here going on, so why not tighten that up just a skosh. And actually that was probably a bad idea. Okay, so that takes care of that. Now if we were going to do it this way, the next thing I would do is actually delete this keyframe. Hello. I guess I need to expand this out a bit. Oh, it's because it's locked. Yeah, okay, so it did delete it in the ink, just not in the sketch. So let's turn the sketch back on so I can see what I'm doing. And I do believe that something like that, as my friends from Decatur would say, will get us to our close-up. Okay, so again, that's one of the nice things about Blender is the ability to, everything's scalable, everything's deformable. There's one thing here though that's missing, which is, let's take our little highlight color and let's go something like that. Okay, and I'm going to say that on the other shot, yeah, we probably could put a little bit. Nope. If we're going to do it, we got to go in the other direction, like that. Okay, that's cool. And I suppose if you really wanted to take it to the next level, you might do something like that. Let's go to the next keyframe. Here, that would be probably more like that. Okay. We don't want to get carried away. Don't do too much and make it start looking like something it's not. It is the mind of the artist. We tend to use various new techniques, more technical, more organic, or later impression creating. Yeah, I don't know what I am. I'm something though. I'm something. Alright. Ink. Yeah. The one thing I do want to tweaky poo here is I don't feel like I'm seeing quite enough there. And I definitely am not seeing enough of it there. So Yeah, that feels a little better. Okay. So now what I would have to do is turn this on and just, I'm in my ink layer, so hit the D key. Boop. Which adds a keyframe. And by the way, I better dog. Yeah, I'm just using it because it's fun. There is no reason, Darren. Something to do, man. Okay, so now we're back to ink. And the real more pertinent question isn't why am I using Blender. The question is why am I going ahead and finishing up these frames? Let's see. I'm drawing a blank on Akari's hair. That's really weird. Oh yeah, it's violet. It's like purplish. I better turn the tint off here. And okay, well, I got it. I'm gonna do something like that. I think that probably needs to be tilted slightly more to the blue. Nah, actually no. More the pink. Okay, that would be more like the that would be more like the oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I want to duplicate that. Copy color. Okay, and then this one would be a little deeper. So let's go with that. Okay, so again, I'm working back to front. Actually, that's the wrong color. I'm just going to use this color for now and change it later, since it'll stand out like a sore thumb and I'll definitely remember. Okay, so that's not right. Yeah, okay, this is where it can get a little confusing. Working back to front, because actually, yeah, stop. Actually, what should be happening here is her head. Okay, I've got a little problem there, by the way, right here. Cool. All right, so then this is probably the most, and I'm sure no one else on the planet would do it this way, but the least intuitive thing about it is certainly working from back to front, having to think in terms of what's behind, just to save time, really. Maybe having to think about it winds up costing more time than you save, but whatever. Okay, so the problem we're going to have here, I can see the problem we're going to have here. So now I got to copy that color, and I want to move it back up close to here. Normally, it seems in Blender what you want to do is have a color that has your outline color sort of baked into it, and then one that doesn't, so that you can use it for patching. So yeah, there's a bit of patching going on today. Looks like I used the wrong color for these guys. I did. So I'm gonna just hit Control, grab these. That's gonna grab the skull too. So let's go this, 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 this. Let's see if this works. And what we want to do is grab this color, and I believe I have it set up as Control M. Control M. Oops, I don't want that. Okay. I know now you guys are going, what the heck is he doing? The thing that you're probably not getting right at the exact moment is dyslexia. Right now, what I'm struggling with is a manifestation of the very mild dyslexia that I have, where I'm trying to puzzle out. It's like I can click a color and I can see exactly which one I should be using, but I grab the wrong one. It's a weird thing. I've never been diagnosed with dyslexia either, but because my daughter does not know left from right, and she's 26 years old, there's definitely some indications of dyslexia there. So, oop, we got a little patchy poo here. Okay, so, I mean, my basic conclusion, as you can kind of see as you're watching me struggle through this, is that this is probably not what I want to be doing. Doing ink and paint in Blender is, you know, and the lines aren't really perfect. I mean, let's just kind of see this through. I doubt like crazy that I'll wind up using this, but I mean, what you could do is this. You could go in and ink over top of it, give it a little more sketchy look. But what I have to say that within OpenTunes, I've really developed a workflow that gives me a final look that I'm really happy with. And every other program I go to, including Krita and here in Blender, tends to, it's like it looks okay, but it's not quite the look I'm after. And so there's kind of a starting over process, refiguring out, well, how do I get that look that I want? Okay, so now I'm going to take this, I'm going to smooth that just a little bit, and then go to my ink and basically try to make it sketchier is what I'm going to do. This is when I am happy. This is when I get the best results, is when I'm drawing. So when it becomes a little too mechanical, like, you know, sort of fighting with layers and ordering and all that, what's interesting about it is not only is it less fun, but it also looks worse. Now, if I was doing, you know, Family Guy or, you know, some cartoon that is basically puppet animation, this approach would probably be well advised, actually. But for an anime, I question whether it's like the greatest approach. So I don't know. But yeah, by doing a little more sketchy drawing, definitely gives more the look that I'm hoping for. Okay, so now in this case, she's actually, we're kind of seeing her nose more than we normally do. Okay, and I think the mouth, I'm gonna leave it at that. Obviously it's got to be colored in, but okay. So let's just take a look at the renders and see what the renders look like. Yeah, that's acceptable. Oops. Hello. Yep, that's acceptable. That's not. Well, the big difference is the shadows, isn't it? So, there you go. It's really true. I mean, you cannot overstate how much of a difference in quality shadows make. Now, by the way, at this point she's talking down to him, and the light source is back there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and smack in some shadows and see what we think. Obviously her eyes need to be colored. Gosh, really? See that? I don't want to go to that level. I think that's probably okay. Alright, so just thinking here. This is a little risky. Let's see what it looks like. It's not horribly off. Guess what we'll do is, if you really wanted to keep things loose and sketchy in Blender, one way to do it is to just work with lots of patches like that. Just say, hey, I'm gonna draw 50 zillion shapes in order to sort of get it to where I want it. And right there, I'm gonna smooth that out a bit. And I guess, let's see if I can fix that little bit there with the erase tool. If I go too far, I'm going to dip into my black lines, and oh, I just caught my shadow. Okay, now that's fixable by going lock on the shadow color, which is okay, unless it's not. Did I not? Oh, I got the wrong one. Sorry, my bad. Shadow right there. Okay, that should do the trick, so that now, okay, I messed up her mouth, but that's okay. That's pretty easy to fix. Just draw it again. Be quick about it, man. Be quick about it. Okay, so unlock the shadows. Okay, well, what else would we have? Well, we would have highlights. Nope, too much. Okay. Nope, can't have it back there. I'm going to do another bit of shadowing. Actually, no. Ink. Okay, let's see here. We're looking cheap for exercise as long as the two objects. Yeah. Can't argue with that. Sounds pretty reasonable to me. So I'm gonna hit the go button. Okay, back to my sketch. And actually what I was gonna do is see how that renders. Let's take a look. Yeah, I mean, not bad. Not bad, and it'd be pretty easy to deform her chin and then put the lip sync in there. Honestly, the mouth should be in a totally separate layer, but not the worst. Not the worst ever. But with that, I think I'm going to stop this and come back here and stay focused from here on out on what I intended to do today, which is animatic / storyboards. Okay, so let's get that to a roughly comfortable drawing size. And what'll probably happen is I'll just render this out as an image sequence and then bring it into OpenTunes for Ink and Paint. That's probably what's going to happen. But I will say the look I'm getting with the Ink and Paint here is not too shabby. Alright, what's next? Okay. Here's what happens next. I'm going to actually grab this and wiggle it. And the reason I wiggled her, the fact that I wiggled right where her nipple is, pure coincidence, folks. Pure coincidence. But what we're going to do here is get rid of her head. Because what actually happens here is that Ninja number 2, we hear a noise, and it's Ninja number 2 clamoring to climb back in the window. So he ostensibly fell some 30 or 40 feet at least, but yet somehow he survived and manages to climb back in the window. So let me see what that would look like. I'm going to turn my onion skins on here just for the moment so I can kind of, okay, so that would come back here. And what we have to do is we have to do a turn of the head but maintain this upward looking angle, right? Okay, that kind of got me where I wanted to be. That's cool. So okay, so now here's another blenderism. If I really wanted to, whoops, make it cool, I might move her body a little bit, click here, turn off only render so I can see where the cursor is, click here, actually I'm going to click back here, and then I'm going to grab this up here and I'm going to rotate, okay, but I need to make this, sorry, projected 2D, okay. And that needs to be the period key, yeah. So now what we're trying to do here is crank down the range. Okay, yeah. So I need to actually grab a little bit more, something more like that. Okay, I know I'm nitpicking, but that's fine. Alright, D key. Okay, there's very few situations in this anime where I'm delineating as much of the skull shape the way I am here, but I think that angle you pretty much have to sell the idea of. It won't look like her if you don't have it in there. So okay, so little ears going on. Okay. And her eyes are somewhat exaggeratedly long in this shot. Okay, and I feel like I have a issue here that really needs to be bigger. Okay. Okay, so the obvious question becomes, but what happens next? Well, what happens next is going to require a fair amount of animation. But I think for the purposes of what I'm doing here, I'm going to keep it to a minimum. Just one frame, actually. Alright. Am I or am I not? Well, okay, I'm not. What we really need to do here is a camera move. So what I'm going to do, actually, let me put it this way. I'm going to size this down, knowing perfectly well that later it's going to be scaled up. So here, what I'm doing here is I'm planning in reverse. Okay, this is kind of another place where Blender's kind of useful. Okay, because I can go ahead and map out this shot, and put the character in it, knowing full well that later what I'm going to do is, and I'll go to this angle here to demonstrate, what I know what I'm actually going to see is I'm going to see this, and it may be cuts, it may not be a constant move of the camera, it may be jumping from one to the other, but the point is I only have to draw it once, and then we'll show his other arm coming up here and his head popping up, and of course he looks like death warmed over since he just fell and since he just fell 40 feet ostensibly to his death, but it turns out nope, the fall did not kill him. So yeah, what I'm doing is I'm going to do the wide shot knowing that later I'm going to zoom into specific pieces of it. Maybe more than one. Maybe this shot, maybe then a close-up even of his face. So here, all I need to do is put the indicators in there, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, this is our Naruto looking guy, just because of the spiky hair. Okay. And now his expression is very important, which is actually, you know what we should do is make him cross-eyed. Okay. And see, again, what we could do is actually, you know, draw his whole face in there, knowing it's going to be covered up by the floor here, but then, you know, might be useful here in a bit when his head rises up that we can go ahead and see his face. So we want it to look like this guy's been really through the ringer. So I think the key to that's going to be how he looks under his eyes. Okay. Yeah, I like that. That's funny. Whenever, I've said this before, but whenever I'm doing this and all of a sudden the actual, just looking at my own drawings makes me laugh, that's usually a good sign. It's like this sequence where the guy, where he, wait, was it? Yeah, it was him. Gets kicked in the jewels. You know, you just know that's going to play nicely. So, yeah, I really like his expression there. And you could totally see his eyes going like this as he's crawling up. And again, this is another good thing with Blender is if we wanted to, we could go here, just wiggle that a little bit so that we can then go, and let's just do connected on the, so I'm going to grab these and go like that. So this is what you'd be talking about when he's coming up. He'd be going like, you know, like that. Fun stuff. Interesting that Blender creates keys. Why would it be creating keys on the pencil, or I'm sorry, on the paint level, when I never actually did anything on that level? That's weird. Alright, well, I'm going to hit the box key and get rid of all these keys that I know for perfect fact are erroneous. And forge ahead. Okay, so I want to stay in my camera view for the most part so I can see where the camera's supposed to be. And oh, that's good. Okay, so he comes up. Okay, I think what needs to happen, I'm going to leave that shot in there because why not? This doesn't hurt a thing to have it in there. So now I'm going to go like this. And I'm going to go ahead and get a reaction shot from Akari. So her head has essentially turned this way. Okay, and then I'm going to get also a reaction shot from the other guy. So if we're going to do that, probably the best way to do that, I'll show you, would be to put these spikes in the foreground, and then let's just see. Okay. Okay, so that's Akari. And I think maybe that's a little large. I think maybe we should have her feet in the shot. Okay, so then what would happen is the old dyslexia is kicking in here, so okay. Sorry to have to keep going back. So if he's going that way, if he's there, and basically the window is back here somewhere, we'll say it's there. Okay. Then let's move this a little bit. Just use this to frame the shot, sort of. In fact, actually, you might even see the vase in the foreground there. All right, and so this is the part that's hard about this shot, is I want to really get this guy's twisted around position. All right, so what would probably be going on here is that would be there, and okay, so if he was that size, he would be about there. Does that work? I don't like the fact that, okay, that would put the perspective point right almost here in the middle. I don't like it. So let's go down here just a little bit. And, you know, like I said, this is a good thing about Blender, is you can really fiddle around with getting things dialed in terms of where things are positioned and whatnot. Okay, so what's happening here is basically this. He's turning his head around that way. All right. So I'm just gonna ballpark it, and just so that I can tell what I intended. That's what I'm trying to do here. That's pretty pretty athletic, but you could figure his other leg would be about there. So the guy's a ninja. He's obviously going to be pretty flexible. Okay. So that's cool. So we've got this reaction from Akari. Okay, so her little hair whoop-de-doo is there. That kind of works. Can't forget about her little ponytail, pigtail things. Those are really important to her look. Okay, so I'm gonna contend that this stuff there was too high. Okay. Dun 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 dun. Okay, I think that works. All right, the other good thing is we can zoom in and really treat this like a full-size drawing. Again, that's a nice Blender thing, although it can kind of bite you in a way, because obviously there's going to be the temptation to, and I got to put this, that's the where her dress is ripped. There's going to be the temptation to put in too much detail. All right. Boom. I don't like the ear there. Let's rethink that a bit. I don't like that angle. Really needs to be more like that. Okay, so there's the... Okay, so if we're going to see this at actual size, obviously that's very, very tiny. So what needs to be here is nothing more than that. Otherwise, I'm as I have been known to say from time to time, pissing in the wind, putting a lot of detail in here that is absolutely not only unnecessary, but it's actually kind of harmful. It's going to make it look stupid, because it's all going to mush out once it's rendered anyway. Okay, so in terms of the integrity of her character and being drawn here, can get away with murder pretty much. Okay, let's go. I'm inserting foreshadowing. Yes, you are. I'm trying to stop you from doing what you do, but we've done this dance for a spell now. Yes, yes. By the way, hello, Brahim. Seems like you have more fun today, so you're probably ignoring it. Well, yeah, basically today I don't really care. I'm just, whenever I'm doing animatics and storyboards and blocking and animation, I have fun. So, you know, just rock and roll and do what we do, right? I am having fun. I really enjoy animating her. A big part of that is just because she's, I could not draw female anatomy, you know, sort of convincingly just a few months ago. You know, I really was determined, like, I've got to get this down, and I don't even know how I did it. I mean, I studied a lot of, I looked at, like, on Kill la Kill, if you look at how, I forget the character's name, but if you look at how the girls are drawn there, I'm not saying I've really got it down or anything. Maybe we'll just even do a naughty little... yeah, see, this is actually wrong. This is badly wrong. What we need to do is, I'm going to put the dot there, hit the period key, and I basically don't like the pose at all. So I think that pose is, first of all, it makes her look pregnant, so she really should have a more flat tummy. But there's something about the positioning of her legs there that I think is not working. I think it needs to be simpler. And if this leg's going to be there, then we want to think about our gravity. Okay. Gravity in the sense of making sure that her other foot anchors her. So actually that probably would be appropriate. So, and here's a good way to do it, is just draw the foot. Don't worry about the leg, right? Don't worry about where it's going to be. Draw the foot, then figure out the leg based on where the foot goes. Working backwards, so to speak. Okay. Hard-headed, and that's why I have no style, because I always have a hard time copying other people's work. That's not true, Oxer. You have a style. The style of the animation that you did reminds me of some stuff that Richard Williams has done. When Richard Williams isn't, you know, adhering to an established style, his own drawing style, you probably see most in Charlotte's Web, or maybe the classic made-for-TV cartoon of Dickens' A Christmas Carol, which he art directed and all the rest. So yeah. Do I need to put his other hand in there? I think I might do it like this. Just an indication. He's definitely twisted up a bit. Okay, so now if this happened, by the way, a couple things come to mind. One is, would this actually be here? Well, fortunately, we can fiddle around with. What if we put it, okay, what if we did this? This is where the infinite canvas comes in handy. Let's take this and move it down here. Okay. Take this guy and move, come on. Come on, let go. Alright. Take this guy and move him over. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at the rule of thirds, and I'm going to see if I can get my characters lined up a little more aesthetically. She would be something like that. Okay, hitting the comma and sizing her down a bit. Okay, if that happened, sorry, we gotta hit the, I'm thinking he would be sized down a bit, but he would be there. Okay, so now if we did that, you could take this, maybe rotate that a bit, and put it there. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to delete the strokes and redraw them, but basically that's kind of what I have in mind. You see their influences. Oh, really? Whose level of animation? Richard Williams? Okay, good luck with that. I'm just kidding. He's, you know, Richard Williams, I mean, he's a chameleon. I gotta say, you know, he is definitely a chameleon. You compare the Christmas Carol thing to, you know, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He really can cover any style. Definitely. Okay, so what I was trying to say earlier is that this puts our basic vanishing point something like this, which would mean that the other guys are here in the background. And if these other guys are there in the background, actually, that again suggests that her, yeah. What needs to happen here, I just realized, a lot of times when I refer back to the story, I realize what I'm doing wrong, is she needs to have her legs oriented around this way, because actually what's supposed to happen is this guy, the one that was kind of dressed like Spider-Man, okay, and I don't like the way I drew him, but this guy is going to sneak up behind her. Alright, so yeah. Well, I don't care about getting my project done. I really don't, because my intent is to, you know, my intent is to sell the property and get some kind of production deal, which means there is no getting it done. I mean, it's a show. After this episode, there will be other shows. It's just that I had to spend, 2018 figuring out anime workflow just to see if this was even a viable thing. And it is. And then at that point, actually I'm not going to put that in there. I know that the background's not going to show it. Okay, I'm going to worry, but actually what I'll do is this. I'll go, let's grab this guy. Control C, Control V. Let's do this. And then let's size him on the X. Just so that I can size him down a little bit, which makes him look like he's more behind. And then grab half of him and just change the position a little bit, so that gives me the indication of the other guy that's still in the room. Alright. If we have this wide shot, this is actually kind of an interesting concept here, because if we're going to have this wide shot, it might suggest that for the first time in the scene, we've got some indication. Well, you'll see here, all these backgrounds are very, they're really pretty dark, right? All we ever have seen clearly is this entryway through the window, and here you've got these guys in silhouette in the background. But this might be an appropriate place for the first time to show where the actual entrance to the room is, because Zen's going to be coming in through this doorway here in a little bit and bashing some skulls. So anyway, yeah, so to finish my thought, Oxer, yeah, this is never going to get done. We're going to get the first six to 8 minutes done, and once we hit 6 or 8 minutes and this scene is complete, that sort of sets the stage for the show, then I got to put my salesman hat on and go start, trying to market the thing. That's my basic plan anyway at this point. So, okay, I like this idea. I think this is a good concept. If he comes back in, that means we've still got 4 guys for her to contend with. This would be the guy with the long hair and a sword. And this is the guy who kind of looks like Spider-Man. Okay, let's see. And I think now I'm going to follow Oxer's advice and basically sign off and take a break. Should I do one more key before I do? Let's see here. Everybody's attention is distracted. Let me do one more. Okay. And I think that what I'm going to do is, I'm seeing this fairly clearly in my head, so I'm going to do this. There's the thing, the wall, the window. Okay, and here's Naruto hair guy. Okay, so here's the table, here's the vase, here's Ninja 1 with the ponytail. Okay, so he's lying here, sort of getting up. So that would put Akari here. Okay, ponytail. And my purpose in drawing this is to indicate clearly where the attention has been distracted, because what's going on is Spider-Man looking guy is sneaking up behind her. So one of the key points here is that whatever he says to Akari has to do with honor, and the fact that he wants to he meant to and intends to fight honorably. What we don't realize, see, is that that's kind of a distraction. Her attention now is distracted by the guy coming in the window. This guy's going to be sneaking up on her. And so really what we want to do here is Shift D to duplicate this, and what I'm going to do is do that twice, because, oops, D key, Eraser. Eraser. Okay. The only thing is, he's flipped, isn't he? He's got to actually be flipped around the other way. Okay, technically I probably can't reuse this shot. I didn't think about that. So let me try it anyway. I'm gonna hit all, and I'm gonna size it on the X -1. And what that does is flip it. Okay. Alright, and now what I'm gonna do is go like this. Oops. And erase all this, because his arms are all in the wrong position. However, I think this shot could be used for the next little bit. Okay, so obviously this needs to be gotten rid of. And the idea here, Shift D, is now the one thing that Krita and OpenTunes have on Blender here, and by the way, if somebody knows, oh well, okay, Oxer asked the question, can you pitch a show with only a fourth or... Okay, well look, here's the deal. I have a little street cred because I've produced and directed and written and edited and scored a feature film that made $1 million. So that helps. And I have relationships with distributors. And Hollywood's kind of a small community, really, and everybody knows somebody. So the answer is yes, I think you can. I think that if I can demonstrate the ability to create broadcast quality animation of this nature in a short form, and I've done a good job of doing my homework and speccing out what exactly the labor requirements are going to be to turn it into a finished 22-minute episode, then of course you can pitch it. Why not? You know, everybody wants content. Everybody wants content. The question, of course, is, does everybody want my content? And the bottom line is, if it's good, you know, you'll find your audience. What I was going to do here is just go zoom in here and hit the D key and erase these. Okay. So this is the idea. I mean, he's sneaking, right? You can see what's going on. So if I know anyone or have friends that work in Hollywood, I can do the same then. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have a friend right now, for example. I have a friend right now in Indianapolis who is a writer. She's a pretty good writer. She's a pretty good producer. She had a bit part in one of my movies. She's frankly a better producer than she is an actor or actress. But she's done some short films and whatnot, and she's demonstrated to me that she, with determination and discipline, she has what it takes to get a movie produced. And so I put her in touch with the folks at Maverick Entertainment, because they're a distributor that I've had contact with in the past, and they've had really good luck with urban content, basically black cast movies of the Tyler Perry ilk, and also some, you know, like kind of faith-based stories. There's a fair amount of that in the quote-unquote urban community, and my friend is a black woman in Indianapolis, and that's kind of the type of story she wants to tell. So I connected her with this distributor, and they immediately, based on what I've done in the past, said, hey, you know, if you want us to give you a letter of intent, no problem. I mean, we absolutely would love to distribute her film, assuming she, you know, gets it done. And it could take another year or two to do that. But so this is very much preliminary. This is just saying, hey, if I did it and it was good, we know that there's at least one pathway to get the product out to the marketplace. Now, does that mean that she'd make her money back on it? You know, who knows? There's no promising that. Is it critical that she have a name actor in the movie, for example? Don't know. Maybe. It couldn't hurt, but you have to weigh the cost of that. You know, I've talked in another video about the fact that you can get a name actor for a pretty low price, truthfully, but whether that matters for her, you know, her genre, the genre itself, this is why Healed by Grace worked, actually, my movie. It was It was a horse movie chick flick aimed at the sort of faith and family audience. And in that case, a name actor wasn't really needed because the genre itself drove the audience. There's an audience for that type of movie that actively looks for new content of that nature. And so at that time, because of the retail space that existed, that movie was able to find its audience. It wouldn't work today. In fact, we're going to find out how bad it won't work because the sequel to that movie is not going to do nearly as well as the original did. I'm sure of it. I got the first quarterly reports just like a week ago, and it doesn't look good. And I mean, the movie, you know, is it the greatest movie you ever saw? No. Is it pretty serviceable? You know, reasonably entertaining, good laughs here and there, a little bit of emotional. Yeah, it's got all that. But it's got to find its audience, and I'm not personally spending any effort, you know, trying to promote it through social media or anything like that. I wanted to go ahead and see how it does, letting the distributor do their job. So, okay. So obviously here, what we probably should do. So yeah, my point is, I find it. I often get these sorts of questions from people, usually young people, who, in their quest to be creative professionals, maybe, you know, they're always wondering. You can summarize it this way: they're always wondering what they have permission to do. And my answer is, you have permission to do anything. If the content is good, you will find your audience probably. Unless it's just really mismatched, you know, unless you've really mismatched the content to its audience, or, you know, you can't sell AC units to Eskimos, okay? So you can't really be stupid when it comes to creating entertainment. Now, YouTube is a great place to test it. You know, when this thing is a finished episode, and if I take this episode and I give it away, will it cause would it take off? You know, would it be successful and find its audience? And would that result in giving me more traction to go to, say, Netflix and say, hey, look, we've proven we can draw an audience. So let's talk about what it would take to create this thing. I think that what you will find is that Hollywood is a small community. I think that you will find that if the people you are trying to work with like you and get the sense that you are a professional who can do what you say you'll do, you know, and this sort of thing, then, you know, that still doesn't mean you'll get it together. It still does not mean you'll get it together. But your chances, you know, it's like any job or any opportunity you might pursue. Your chances are much greater if you've shown that you can get shit done. You know, it's not complicated. All right, so what I'm going to do here, I think what I want to do is, see, I really want to reverse the legs, and the only way to make that play visually is to, since if the legs reverse positions, it would look the same in silhouette. So therefore, in order to make this play, what I really need to do is erase the legs and redraw them, just so that they're a little bit different the second time. All right, and now what I'm going to do is toggle between these two shots. So at least I've got some indication of what's supposed to happen next. You know, at the end of the day, this is just work. It's just grunt work. You know, how long does it take you to draw an animatic? How long does it take you to ink? I mean, I've determined that it takes about 4 times as long to ink a scene. Doing what I'm doing right now happens 4 times as fast as ink and paint and finishing, you might say. So I can draw it and I can ink it, and that's going to take thus and such period of time. Painting it, shadows and backgrounds, roughly 4 times as long, I think. That's pretty much what seems to be holding true. Pretty close to that. And I want to be very aware of that, because at the end of the day, if I find somebody who can do this work, and you know, we're going to hire them, they're going to be part of the project. Rick and Morty started on YouTube, and the lady who does Insecure, well, and so did Happy Tree Friends. So yeah, of course that can work. And again, if the thing's drawing an audience, of course, you know, those with money in their pockets will be interested in exploiting it. I mean, that's what they do. That's their job, is to find cool properties and get them out there and you know, build the audience and get advertising revenue or whatever else your business model consists of, right? It's all good. That's almost sort of hinting that the wind is blowing around. Now, obviously, I could just copy and paste those strokes, and probably I should, but that's all right. So what do we got so far? Let's see what we've got so far. Let's really go back and take a look. All right. Argue. Do. Next sequence. What are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. Obviously, we're going to have to put the mouth in. So yeah, at the end of the day, like, how long does it take to make a movie? I say 6 months. Figure a month to write it, a month to cast it and get your logistics figured out, a month to shoot it, a month to edit, a month to score, a month for color correction and finishing. So that's moving pretty fast on a modestly budgeted picture. If it's a bigger picture, then you just need more people involved if you still want to get it done in 6 months. That's the way it goes. Okay. So I've made 8 movies, 3 of which are pretty good, and they all took about the same period of time. Now, in a couple cases, that 6 months was actually spread over 2 or 3 years because I had other things going on, but the actual time spent on the project itself comes out to about 6 months. So how does that compare to anime? I don't know. My sense is that if you do what I'm doing here and you kind of know what you're doing, I think, I don't know. I just don't know yet. I just don't know yet what the real time frame is to go from, you know, a bunch of story beats like this to a 22-minute finished episode. Because I have made a lot of mistakes in the workflow, and so I'm still learning. But I do feel extremely confident that this is going to be a very entertaining show, entertaining property, when it's done. Boom, 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 boom. So, you know, I have to pay the price, however much time it takes to sort of get this stuff figured out, because I don't want to pitch. I don't want to pitch something without knowing darn well what I'm selling, without knowing what it's going to cost to produce, both for my own sake and for the sake of my distributors, or the network, or whoever it is, Netflix, whatever. My goal is to deliver a product that's going to be a win for me, but it's also going to be a win for them. And that's how you secure your place. You know, the reason I was able to make the sequel to Healed by Grace is because I made the original, and the original sold well. And so, obviously, the funds to create the sequel were readily available because I had proven myself. That's what happens. So the hard thing about this animation stuff is you got to prove yourself the first time. You got to get out there and make it happen. There's no shortcut. So that's just life, man. So fortunately, I'm lucky. I'm in a position that I basically can spend the time to get this figured out. I think that's the saddest thing, is when somebody has a vision and really wants to do XYZ, and now some people make excuses, but sometimes you know, you're holding down a full-time job, and it's hard. You know, it's just difficult to snap out of that rut and be able to pursue your dreams. That's why I'm really encouraging my 16-year-old to try things early. You know, we developed a musical jingle business last summer, and we're going to get more serious about it this summer. But it's like he's only a sophomore in college, so he's got 3 years to make a lot of mistakes. And so our goal is to make as many mistakes as possible, as fast as possible, so he learns what the ups and downs of the business and the sales process and all that are. So when he gets out of high school, he's already going to be ready to say not only what he wants to do, but how he wants to do it, and to have determined maybe some things that he thought he wanted to do, but found out he really didn't, you know, that sort of thing. So that is me over here. Well, you're probably talking about having a full-time job and trying to do this on the side kind of thing. I assume that's what you mean by that is me over here. Yeah, it is difficult, and I did pay the price. To be fair, I paid the price years ago in the 1990s by getting on the phone and selling like hours and hours a day. I was determined to make my business work so that I could be my own boss. And everybody has to go through that step. You have to go through the difficult step of gutting it out against all odds when your brain's telling you this isn't going to work. It would be cool if everybody could have a safety net. I honestly feel that way. And in the real world, it often doesn't work that way. And it is too bad. And that's why people get jobs. And that's why people do, look for mentors. And that's why people apprentice, is because it gives you an accessible way to develop your craft. I wish I had a dad that was an artist or an influence early on. I will tell you, Oxer, I didn't. I was completely on my own. In fact, my parents were very resistant to my creative endeavors. When I was in high school, I really wanted to be a comic book artist. I was into John Buscema, Frazetta, a little bit of John Byrne, blah, blah, blah. And, they were kind of okay with that. But once I started getting into guitar and music, they really weren't super supportive, I must say. And I didn't have lessons either. I literally taught myself everything. Every instrument I learned, I taught myself. I've never taken a lesson in anything, actually. And I'm not saying that to brag. I mean, in a way, it's stupid. I actually have... I'm 53 this year. I've taken plenty of time to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, But I consider myself lucky that I can, consider those options, whatever they might be, and try new things. So, okay, I shouldn't have done all that touch-up because it made obviously, to make this work now, what I would have to do is duplicate the frame and then just cut and paste in only the eyes. So does anyone know, there isn't a way to ripple these keyframes, is there, in Blender? I mean, you can obviously hit the B key to draw a box, or you can hit the control key and lasso, but you can't move one and force all the others to automatically ripple. That's one thing you can do in both OpenTunes and Krita. Not a big deal. As long as you don't have so many keyframes that it goes off the page, you can still keep track of it pretty much. You'd have to have a lot of keyframes to have that going on. So I guess it would save 30 years of trying to figure stuff out. Yeah, because I think you're about my age. If I ever had a child, he or she would have it a lot easier. Yeah. Yeah, my kids are all entrepreneurial. My son is... My older son is one of the top personal trainers in New York City, and he is the top trainer at his club, which is one of the most elite clubs. So he trains a lot of millionaires and stuff. And then my daughter has her own business. So my kids are sort of wired that way. All right, what do we got next? I said I was going to quit, and then I blabbed for another 10 minutes and created a few other things. So this part is important. Okay, the way this is written on the beats, it says that Ninja 1 says something. He's trying to create a distraction while the bloody Ninja 2 crawls in, which we already did that. And then Ninja number 5 is sneaking. Okay. Wait a second. There's a few beats in here that I think are probably too many. Because if I'm gonna go... If we have the distraction of Ninja 2 crawling in, why do we need these beats here? I'm inclined to say screw those beats. Let's put in the next thing, which is... okay. Alright, and this guy. I look back and was entrepreneurial when I was young, but there was no push or support behind it. Be looked at as an excuse for some. Well, yeah, and I gotta say, I did have a one lucky break, and my lucky break was when I was out of college. I got a job in a recording studio, which is what I wanted to do. Right away, it was a really kind of a small studio back when recording studios were actually a thing. And the guy that I worked for, he just, he was on the phone selling all day, so he really turned me loose to just run the audio room. I had a lot of freedom to develop my skills, and what happened was I would work late, a lot, because I was learning to use the technology. Back when digital samplers were a thing. Of course, it's all on computers now, which is great, but back then you'd have these standalone keyboards that were used for sampling, so you could play. If you guys don't know what sampling is, that means that you can play the sound of a brass section on a keyboard. Play all the instruments on a keyboard. Well, I didn't know how to play keyboards, so I'm like, I'm gonna learn, by gum, and I did. And I taught myself to play, because then I don't have to hire players to come into the studio. If we have a jingle to produce, I can do it myself. That was my mindset. And plus, to be fair, that's my preference. I like doing it all myself. I mean, that's how I made movies too. Not completely myself, but for the most part. And that's just a preference thing. Am I a control freak? Yeah, probably. But the question is, how are you going to find someone who put it this way, when I'm at the point where I want to actually hire and offload some of this stuff to others, then I'm sure I will find those others. Okay. And this guy is Spider-Man, basically. He's a ninja that's literally all wrapped up, and all you see is his eyes. Okay, let's pull back just a little bit here. Okay, yeah, I was trying to figure out what I'm seeing here. This is her hand. Okay, I got to be careful, because if I'm going to draw her bosom, then I got to make sure that her arm is above that. For obvious reasons. There's kind of a middle ground here. I mean, I think it's kind of like that. Like her arm would actually be pressing it down. And then this arm is coming underneath. Yeah, that's not, well, I don't like that. It's kind of weird how sometimes you get just one little thing that looks wrong and it makes it all look really amateurish. Okay. There's the strap. There's the ponytail thing. Now I'm too old to care after seeing. Okay, also with the art back in the 90s. Tile, perfectionism. Well, that's definitely a common problem. Runaway modeling, all those areas with the right mentors or connections would have. Now I'm too old to care after seeing other people make it and crap art succeed. I'm like, what the hell, just get it out there. There you go. That is true. If you want to get, I mean, I definitely sucked at this when I started, and I'm not saying I'm great now, but you know, it's the only thing that's made. I actually, every day I journal about whatever I'm thinking about, and the thing that was really jumping out at me today, is the only time I am actually making progress is when I am either drawing, composing music, writing, like screenplays, stories, coding, because I do a fair amount of software development, and that's kind of part and parcel, you know, the whole web development thing, and that's evolved into sort of more an SEO and social networking thing, which I haven't spent a lot of time on, but am currently developing in concert with the anime development. But when I'm, or selling, coding, writing, composing, or drawing, you know, animating. When I'm doing those 5 things, I make progress. Overall, in my life in general, I make progress. When I'm everything else, watching YouTube videos, even reading books, you know, and things like that, that's all useful. But there's a lot of things that come up in your schedule that are, you know, it's great. There's nothing wrong with spending all day watching YouTube videos if that's what you want to do. But don't think that's going to move you towards your goal, whatever your goal might be. Yeah, don't kid yourself. It's only when you're doing your core competencies that you A, improve, and B, make progress. And that's really jumped out at me. It's really, really binary. If you want to make progress, you gotta discipline your. Stephen J. Cannell said this. Stephen J. Cannell is a guy I really respect and admire. Produced a lot of successful TV shows back in the 1980s, and before he died, the last chapter of his life was spent writing novels instead of producing television. And so he loved authors and loved to talk to authors about the business and craft of writing. And he always said, you must write every day. And he did it. He wrote when he hadn't sold a thing, when he had absolutely no success at all. He would work all day, and then he would go home, and he would write for 5 hours every single day. And he did that for 5 years before he got his first break, which was writing for the TV show Adam 12 back in the 60s. 5 years writing for 5 hours a day. And what happened was, when the opportunity came up, they were in a pickle because they needed a script really fast. And because he had written for 5 hours a day for 5 years, he knew what he could do. He knew he could do the job, and he knew he could do it in 3 days. And they didn't believe him. He almost lost the gig because there's no way you're going to be able to do this. And he did it, and he delivered the script, and it was, pretty good script. And the next day, they made him the story editor on the show. He went from nothing to, pretty good success literally overnight because he was prepared. Now, what you're seeing today is me preparing. That's what I'm doing. I am preparing. Okay. So the anime thing is sorry, I'm looking at hotkeys here. I want to actually do some erasing here. Do I want to use this hand again? I think not. I'm going to get rid of those strokes. Okay. In other words, that's why I gave myself time to work out the workflow for anime and hopefully develop the craft as well a bit. Because I knew I couldn't just dive in and be productive. This is too big of a task. Okay, what do we got going here? I can't see my... I wonder if it's because only render is on go. I don't know why I can't see the indicator for the scope of the proportional editing tool, but that's okay, it doesn't matter. D key, I'm just going to erase that. I need to erase our pupils as well. Boom. Yeah. So Ninja 1 was talking about honor. You know, the honorable enemy, fighting with honor. And now this guy sneaks up behind her, and so it's going to be like, okay, what happened to honor? What about this honor stuff you were talking about? It's that sort of a thing. Okay. Now this is going to be very interesting. This arm doesn't make sense. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to cheat. I am going to... Well, I can't cheat. I can't cancel out that arm, unfortunately. Wish I could. This is a tricky thing to animate, actually. Yeah, I know. Winsor McKay was definitely a pretty amazing guy. All right. I think he should grab her around the throat, frankly. So that's it. I'm doing it like this and like this. So I'm going to say okay. So if he was going to have, okay, so if his shoulder was there, all right, I want to make sure I don't draw stuff that makes me see it wrong, so I can't properly figure out what I'm doing. So my sense is that this is difficult, folks. I want to tell you, this is a tricky bit that I'm trying to animate here. So as I always like to say, you work from the known to the unknown. So what I know is that her arm is here, and I know that his hand is probably going to be sort of clawing around like this. This I'm not buying. There's actually a lot I'm not buying here. I'm not buying this at all. Okay, I like this. So if that happened, then his head would be more like here, wouldn't it? Okay, so then I think his arm would run right under here. Okay, let's give that a look. Okay. And of course, this is nowhere near exaggerated enough. Remember, folks, this is anime. Gonna be fun. Alright, let's take a peek. Okay, that feels pretty good. I guess we could go ahead and put his other knuckle right there and kind of imply that that's a closing fist. I would be the first to admit that is not really selling it too well. Yuck. So let's keep it sketchy. Let's keep it sketchy for the moment, especially because this does go by pretty fast. Alright, so now the thing is, he would be, yeah, that would be an awkward position to find yourself in. Gotcha. Alright, so what's here? Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to stop and look here. This is where 3D proxies are useful. Importing even DAS model into Blender may help with those models for pose reference. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, if they were generic models that were pre-rigged, so you're not having to really fiddle a lot, then it might be useful. I don't know. So far, what I've determined is just learn to draw. That's what I'm trying to do. Just learn to draw, so that you're able to, because in all of this content, even this stuff, like right here, this was easy. I mean, that's some of the best acting in the show, in my opinion, and it was easy. This is only hard because you've got the two bodies interacting together, So, and my point is that this is the only thing I've bumped into that's been actually difficult in quite a while. So it's like, am I going to adopt a whole workflow with 3D models and all that just because of this one drawing that's difficult once in a great blue moon? No. If it was that big of a deal, it'd make more sense to get out my camera and just take a video of doing it, and use that as a reference to draw from. So, I think for the sake of what we're trying to do here, I think what would happen is you'd have one shot of her objecting furiously. Okay, so yeah. Yeah, she's protesting. What about your so-called fair fight? And then what happens is within a few moments she finds herself completely surrounded now by all the ninjas. So they have captured her. So you probably didn't know she was going to get captured, but yep, that's what happens. So sucks to be Akari. So we're going to do this in the time-honored anime way. So I'm just going to get the little eyebrow or eyelash things going on. But beyond that, it's going to be a little bit cartoony. Alright. So we'll scan through these keyframes. Sneak, sneak, sneak. Boom. Wah! Okay, guys. That's it. 2 hours. 2 hours. So that's it for today. Working out animatics. Pencil test. In Blender grease pencil. Yes, I know. Those who know me can't believe I'm using Blender grease pencil. I'm just doing it because it's fun. Remember, I've been using Blender since 1999. I have a long history with Blender. I love Blender. Once 2.8 comes out, you know, where it's stable enough for them to call it an official release, then I'll go ahead and revisit the grease pencil there and see if it works for me. Because it might. I'm not opposed to it. I'm kind of, the more I get good with my tools, the more pragmatic I become about my tools. I don't care what I use, as long as it works, as long as I can get the job done, and it doesn't impede the workflow more than it helps. So there it is. Yeah, later, dude. Thanks for the stream. Well, Oxer, the question is, what are you doing to get it out of your head and into a document? Because arguably the most valuable skill, and I firmly believe this is true, if you want to learn just one thing that has more Hollywood value, is be a writer and be a good writer. If you can churn out stories reasonably quickly that are good 3-act structures, and you know, using established characters where you're able to write to the constraints of the project at hand, you are worth your weight in gold. I'm telling you. I say that because the truth is most people can't. I mean, look at, my goodness, there is a show right now. I guess I was seeing it advertised during the Super Bowl. The only football game I watch all year is the Super Bowl. And this year's Super Bowl was lame. Slow, boring. The play-by-play was the only interesting part. I thought that Tony, was it Romo or something? He was kind of entertaining to listen to. But anyway, so there was a commercial. There was a show on there. If somebody knows what it is, let me know. It's something like Man Meets something, and the guy in it is the guy that used to be on Friends, who then was in Top Gear when the 3 guys in Top Gear left the show and went over to Amazon to do the show Grand Tour. And this guy, I can't remember his name. He was in Friends. But so I'm seeing these ads during the Super Bowl for this sitcom, and you can just tell this sitcom is not going to last. The writing is clearly so lame, it's ridiculous. Nothing in the previews were funny. Nothing. There was nothing funny about it. Just stupid jokes that you've heard a billion times before. There's a lot of garbage writing out there, man. A good writer can turn a show. You know, it's like there's this one on Netflix right now that Aaron Ehash, if I'm saying his last name right, he's the showrunner. He was one of the writers on, well, he actually was one of the writers on Futurama, but he also was a key writer on Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I'm telling you what, this show on Netflix, I forget what it's called, but it is well done. I mean, you sort of have to there's a little bit of a cheeseball factor you sort of have to get through when you first start watching it to, like, is this going to be good or not? But once it catches, man, you know, Aaron Ehash is a good writer. He's a good writer, and he does the time-honored things that you expect to see, but then he gives it a twist. You know, he always gives it a little twist. I definitely respect that guy's writing, and I believe that's why the show is good. Because if the writing is lame, there's nothing you can do to fix it. I don't care how good of an animator you are. If your story sucks, your show sucks. It is what it is. Get over it. So, obviously I screwed up his eyes. I think what I'm going to do is go to this view and hit the 9 key so that I can just flip this around. That's better. Yeah, that was definitely looking stupid. All right. So yeah, not only, you know, having good ideas, frankly, well, there's nothing wrong with writing a what would you call it, a fandom, a tribute, you know, show or whatever. In fact, that's how you get a job writing for a TV show. If you want to get a job writing for TV show A, what you do is you write and submit a spec script for TV show B. The general practice is not to write a spec for the show you're trying to get on. Now, I think it's pretty necessary that you know somebody who's already involved with the show. Otherwise, you know, yeah, you can write a spec and maybe it'll grab, but the chances are it won't even get read. You know what I mean? So there is that thing that you have to battle, definitely. But no, the writing can make it or break it. Yeah, I don't think it's arrogant. I have a script for a Futurama episode, and I mean, I could play the soundtrack. Maybe I'll do that on another video. But I mean, I literally have a soundtrack of the first act of the episode, and you know, I did most of the voices myself, which you might not think. You might think, okay, yeah, right, Dave. Okay. Well, if you heard it, you'd be surprised. You know. And I'm not even going to try to do it now because I'm just not in the mood. But yeah, I did all the voices, and well, obviously not Leela. I actually hired a girl to be Leela. Okay, all I'm going to do is dupe this, Shift D, so that I can put the indication of her speech pattern in here. Fine, that's close enough for rock and roll. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, if you've written them, then the question becomes, are you going to try to produce them? You know? And that, you know, this is the thing about Hollywood and movie making and all this that I think people don't really understand is, folks, it's just work. It's just work. It's like digging a ditch. It's no different. It's just something you do, and it takes time. You know, if somebody says, "Well, I haven't done this or that because I don't have time," I'm going, "Yeah, that's reasonable because it does take a lot of time." You know, producing a TV show, there's no glamour in any of it. None of it. I really want to emphasize this. There's no glamour. If you want glamour, you know, freaking put on a glam outfit and go to the club. Entertainment is not about glamour. You have to love the craft. You have to love writing. You have to love animating. What I'm doing right here, I really enjoy just sitting here drawing these stupid pictures. If you don't love the work, don't kid yourself into thinking you're ever going to be part of the entertainment industry, because you have to love the work. And frankly, most people in the entertainment industry work very hard. Yeah, there's a few actors that get $10 million for, you know, performances that are of questionable value, but most people in the industry just plain work real hard and earn whatever they get. They earn. Aaron Ehash is a good writer and probably makes darn good money because he makes the network money. Because people tune in to see his shows, and that's the product. The product is not the show. The product is the eyeballs that watch the show that can be sold to an advertiser. That's the product. This show, it doesn't matter how well I animate. This show does not matter a whit how well I do. If at the end of the day it isn't sufficiently entertaining to keep an audience engaged, such that we've created a product. The product isn't the anime, the product is the eyeballs that watch the anime. Now you can sell an entertainment property directly, but it's tough. You know, there are no DVD sales anymore. The retail sector's gone. It's all about streaming, and so indirectly it's all about social media. Unfortunately, because I hate social media. I mean, YouTube, what I'm doing on YouTube is as close as I get to networking or to social network. But it is about social media because you got to build the audience for the product. And where is the audience? They're on Facebook. So this is the great responsibility of a distributor nowadays, is to be good at finding an audience for a property. I'll tell you a little secret. Most distributors suck at it. What they do is they have key buyers that they've worked with for a long time, and they send out an email blast every 2 weeks. And it is effective, but it's not very effective. That's the truth. That's just what they do. There are distributors that... And the problem, you know, this is the problem with Hollywood shows. Hang on, I got to look at my beat list. Or movies as well, is the cost of marketing the stupid thing is more than the cost of production. If you got a $20 million movie, you're going to spend 20 or 30 marketing it. There's a lot to recoup, you know? So then the others come around. So at this point, what we really have is probably a variation of this shot. I'm going to say probably wider. Well, actually, let me see. Maybe I can no, I can't use this. I can use this, and actually I probably should, for the simple reason that it gives us continuity. So I'm going to take this and duplicate it over to here, select all, and shrink that sucker way down. And I'm going to rotate this a little bit. Okay, and the reason I did that is so that I can then, and I'm doing sticks and balls here, folks. Okay, and I can see I knew that would happen. I actually still made it too big. It's got to be small enough so her whole body fits, because we're going to have these other guys all surrounding her now, right? So, and I always have this tendency to draw things too large at first. So what I'm going to do is kind of do this, so she's got a little bit of a pigeon-toed thing going on. Okay. Wait a second. Oh, that was stupid, wasn't it? That's not what I meant to do. That's okay. That's easy to recover from. I'll go like this. Drag it over here, and actually the variation in her speech is not that important. So okay, so now, so she's got her two arms. Alright, let me get this. Alright, I have to put the old breast indicator, because she's got her hand here, and then his hand here, and then same thing here. She's got her hand here, and he's got his hand here. Okay, that's pretty close to right. Okay, cool. So now I can tighten this up. As I say, sticks and balls. We want to keep it very clean, very simple, for the simple reason that this is a wide shot. I mean, this is how big she's going to be on the screen. Let's render that and see. Well, okay. Let's change the render settings so that the alpha mode is sky. And you can see, this is what we're actually going to see on the screen. Okay. That's how big it's going to be. So obviously, the details are not that important. What is important is the structure. So I'm using very geometric shapes here, very simple shapes. to clearly delineate where things are. Okay. And I like it. Okay, so now back here, sorry. Yeah, this is actually a little tricky. Alright, so she's got her dress. Boom. And knee. Tibia, I guess. Skinny leg. Knee. Other leg. Okay. We're going to do like that. So this is like that, and that's like that. Okay. So now there we go. So now this guy, we got to put his knees in roughly the same place, but he's basically going to be like that, and we can't really see his other leg very well. Okay, that's fine. Now, if you took this, theoretically, I think if we did this, if we just basically did a two key variation, it would probably sell. So let's try that just for fun, since the cost of doing so is pretty nominal. I'm going to hit the O key, and we want to make sure this is okay, this is supposed to be projected, right? Enabled. Okay, there we go. Okay, now we got our thing back. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to anchor it down here. I'm hitting the plus key, click here, and then rotate just a little bit so their feet basically stay in one place. That's actually too much. That's funny. But what I'm thinking is, if we have this type of a variation going on while in a loop, while the other guys are coming around. So I'm going to try this one more time just for kicks and giggles. That's it. All right. Okay, that's fine. So now, then what we're going to have to do is sort of road map the other characters sneaking in to the scene and basically surrounding her. So that's going to be a bit of a task. And I'm starting to, my brain's getting fried. I'm starting to get sick of it. So probably a good time for a break. So now, Oxer, I will respond to your later dude and say, later dude. I mean later dude. So this has been a good session, and just goes to show that certainly for pencil tests, the Blender grease pencil's perfectly fine. Was this any faster, easier, better, yada 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 than what I would have done in OpenTunes? I would say no. Or Krita. No. It's not really any better, but it is workable and it is fun, and so there you go. Alright, so that's it. I will talk to y'all very soon, I'm sure.